there, this is Shauna from Wild Fox, and today I'm doing a project for Mother's Day. I'm using the Wild HIbiscus stamp set by Altenew and the Fawn Scalloped rectangle stackables. That's a mouthful. So I'm starting with the stamp set, and I'm going to take out, you'll see me take out 4 flowers. I'm actually only going to be using 3, but I didn't know which ones I wanted to use, so I took out 4. I'm going to go ahead and stamp these. I'm stamping them with Memento Tuxedo Black and onto Nina cardstock, 100 pound. And I'm going to stamp the 4 flowers, and then there is a leaf that was actually attached to one of the flowers, but I did a little surgery. I don't usually like to do that, but in this case it was just the perfect thing to do, so I stamped 4 of those leaves. And then as soon as these are stamped, we will Copic color them. I love Copics. They blend so nicely. I know they're an investment, but they're just fabulous for color and for blending. And since they're a lifetime marker, I don't mind doing it. So starting with the iris, at least that's how I interpret this flower. I started with the V12. Now I googled images of irises, and they often are in the purple with a yellow throat or a yellow center. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I started out with the V12, like I said, and then went to the right now doing the RV66. And then I'm going to be adding the V15 and the V12 again, and using these 3 colors and blending until I've got them the way that I want them. And then I'll be adding the yellow 17 to start out with for the center, the YR09, which is kind of a reddish yellow, to give it some depth, and then going back to the yellow 17 and the purples just to get it exactly the way I wanted it. And then there's a stem on this. I wasn't sure if I was going to be using the stem or not, but it was a simple thing to color it. So I used the G21 and then went over it with the G17, which is a forest green. So as soon as this I finished the stem, then I moved on to the Wild HIbiscus flower there right next to the iris. I again googled what the colors of hibiscus are, and I was surprised to see that they actually come in lots of different colors. One of them is a very light pink with a dark center. So I started with an R0000 and then added R01, and then continued with the R32 in the center, coming out towards the outside to add some depth and some deepness to the flower. And then I will add a yellow center to it, which is the Y15 like we used before, the Y17 and the YR09. So you'll see the blending of the 3 pinks and then the blending of the 3 yellows, but mostly spending the time on the pinks. Now I like adding that darker color, that R32. You can see where it starts getting a little bit darker, and it lets the flower have a little bit more dimensional look to it. And then the center adds even more to that dimension when you add that in. Next is the one of these flowers here, and again one of the colors of a hibiscus is a kind of a lemony yellow with a really dark kind of magenta center. And so that's what I wanted this to be. I added a little bit more pink to it because I wanted it to be a really nice complement to the iris and to the pink hibiscus. So I started out with the yellow Y0000 and then went to the Y11 and then added the R01 and went from the center going outward with these short strokes, so kind of feathering them out. And then went to the darker R39, which gives it, again, that's that depth. That's the color that I used before. I like to use, if I can, I like to use a lot of the same colors, so I'm not using a ton of colors, and it's all very complementary that way. The going back and forth with the yellows, again, it's the Y0000 and the Y11 and the Y15. You see those marked above, and then adding more pink in the center. And then the very, very center, we're going to put the R39, which is a magenta type color, and it really gives it a lot of pizzazz right there in the center. And that's what you'll find in nature, is that they have a really, really dark center to them. R39 is one of my favorite colors, so I use it a lot. And then I combined it with the Y38 and the and R32. Now I added, you can see the C7, I added just little bits of it. I wanted it to have kind of a black look to it, but not a really harsh black. So that's why I chose a gray. And when that is done, then we're going to move on to the leaves. I'm going to start out with the G43, which is the lighter of the greens. Now these leaves have a lot of detail to them, as you can see. So it makes it really nice for adding different colors and adding some interest and some dimension to the leaf. So I started out with the G43, went to the G03, which is brighter, like a grass green, and then the G17, which is the more forest green. So that adds a lot of depth when you add in the G17. And then for the final touches, I like to add just a little bit of the yellow, the Y15, because it, to me, makes it a little bit more realistic and it adds more interest. So I'm going to rotate between these four colors until I've got the blending just the way I want. You probably have used Copics. If you haven't, then they have really great blending capability. So you can layer colors on top of one another and they will blend together. Next, I'm going to be cutting fussy cutting all these flowers out. I don't mind fussy cutting, particularly ones like this where the pattern is pretty easy. It's they're broader, they're not pieces, they're not real detailed, and so you can get in there and choose the border that you really like. And so I just cut around these flowers and the leaves, each separately. I've been using the Tim Holtz detail scissors here. They're very responsive, very comfortable, and so you can really kind of zip around these shapes pretty easily. It's much easier with having a short scissor instead of a long one when you're doing detail. Now with all those cut, I'm using a piece of white Nina 100-pound cardstock for the base. It is 9 by 5 3/4. It's scored down the center, and so when folded it's 4.5 by 5 3/4. And then I also cut with using that scallop die, a white panel and a black panel. The black panel is Licorice Twist, and then the white panel is the Nina. And then I just had that little scrap of paper, so I stamped with Versamark the sentiment, which comes with the stamp set, and I'm going to heat emboss it using the Hero Arts white. I really like Hero Arts embossing powders. They go on so nicely and they have good coverage. Now with that white panel, I wanted to have some black splatters, so my favorite way to do that is to use a Starbucks stir stick, which you see there, and then the McCaffrey's black ink. It has a little bit thicker viscosity, and so it makes really round, beautiful splatters to it. And then I'm arranging, after that was dry, I'm arranging the flowers, kind of getting an idea where I want them, and then adding the foam squares so that I can attach them. I'm going to only add the foam squares to the flowers and to one leaf, and the other leaves are going to be taped. Now you can see that stem's kind of in the way there, so I'm going to just snip that off so that it's not in the way. And then I'm going to add these leaves where it makes sense. And I'm using the ATG gun, which is Advanced Tape Gun. I don't know if you've ever used one. They're kind of old school, but they work really great. They have a big spool of tape in them, and so they last a long time, and the tape really sticks very nicely. So I don't like running off and getting more tape all the time, and so this works out really great. Once that one leaf gets in place, then I'm going to add the black panel. I'm going to add tape around it, and I'm going to adhere it to the card base, and I'm just kind of positioning there to kind of get an idea. So the black is down, and now I'm going to add the tape to the top with the flowers. And then as a final touch, I'm going to add a little bit of embellishment. I'm going to add black stickles and the rhubarb crumble, Nouveau rhubarb crumble drops, and some lemon drops of the Nouveau also in the center. I really like that because it gives really nice dimension and a little bit of sparkle. And then as soon as this is done, then I'm going to call this card done. And then you'll see, I'll also show you another card that I did previously where I just used a little bit different flowers but the same idea. There's two sentiments in this stamp set for mothers, and the other one has the other sentiment. Both are really nice. So there you are. They're together there. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks so much for visiting us. Go to our blog for a complete supply list. Thanks.